In the United States in the early 1960s, the civil rights movement made significant advances. However, the passage of the most important piece of legislation, the Civil Rights Act, was still before them.
A gift he said he would cherish.
1963 was a historic year for the civil rights movement. The fight to end segregation was no longer limited to the South and had spread to cities around the country. It had become a national movement. Leaders of major civil rights groups thought it was time for a big event. Civil rights and labor leader Asa Philip Randolph proposed a march on Washington. He had already proposed such a march in 1941, but canceled it after President Franklin Delano Roosevelt issued an executive order that banned discrimination in the defense industries. Like President Roosevelt, President John F. Kennedy did not want the march to take place, thinking it would delay passage of his civil rights legislation. On July 2, 1963, the Big Six met with the president at the White House. These were the leaders of the 6 most prominent civil rights organizations: John Lewis, Whitney Young, Asa Philip Randolph, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., James Farmer, and Roy Wilkins. Despite the president's best efforts to persuade them to cancel, they moved forward with the march. The purpose of the march was yet to be determined. Dr. King wanted it to be a march for freedom. Randolph, who was also a prominent Black leader, thought jobs for Black Americans should be the focus. They decided to call it the March on Washington for Jobs and Freedom. On August 28, 1963, more than 250,000 people came to Washington, D.C. for the march. Black people, white people, children, celebrities, and people of all faiths and nationalities joined the march. There were representatives of organizations from around the country, including the National Catholic Conference for Interracial Justice, the American Jewish Congress, and the AFL-CIO. The people came because they passionately believed in civil rights. They came because they believed in freedom, justice, and equal rights for all Americans. The protesters gathered at the Lincoln Memorial to hear the program. Civil rights activist Bayard Rustin read the list of demands, which included passing civil rights legislation, withholding federal funds from programs that had discriminatory policies, desegregating all school districts, banning discrimination in all housing supported by federal funds, establishing a minimum wage that would give all Americans a decent standard of living, and passing a Fair Employment Practices Act. The highlight of the march was Dr. King's inspirational I Have a Dream speech. Dr. King began,
I am happy to join with you today in what will go down in history as the greatest demonstration for freedom in the history of our nation.
During the speech, he proclaimed,
Because I have a dream that my 4 little children will one day live in a nation where they will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. I have a dream today.
When concluding, he declared,
When we allow freedom to ring, when we let it ring from every village and every hamlet, from every state and every city, we will be able to speed up that day when all of God's children, black men and white men, Jews and Gentiles, Protestants and Catholics, will be able to join hands and sing in the words of the old Negro spiritual, free at last, free at last. Thank God Almighty, we are free at last.
The March on Washington for Jobs and Freedom was the largest public protest in American history. In June 1964, President Lyndon Johnson who succeeded President Kennedy, signed the Civil Rights Act of 1964. The act ended segregation in public places and banned employment discrimination on the basis of race, color, religion, sex, or national origin. It was the greatest legislative achievement of the civil rights movement. The movement's attention would soon turn to the injustices around voting rights for Black Americans.
If you liked this video, you can find it and so many more at clickview.net. Sign up for free today.